Okay, going to go ahead and call the June 21st, 2023 Planning Commission meeting to order. Confirmation of the posting and roll call.
This meeting has been posted in accordance to Nevada open meeting law. All members are present except for member Crum.
Fantastic. And correct me if I'm wrong, do we do approved absences? Are we tracking any of that stuff, or is that fantastic? Okay, go ahead and moving on. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to our first public comment. This public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. Each item will also have a separate public hearing, and we will be taking public comment for each of those numbers as well, but this is the initial public comment portion. Anyone wishing to be heard? Hearing and seeing none, no written comments during this time. Yes, these are limited to the items that are on the agenda, so any agenda item, you can either wait to be heard during that public hearing time where we'll probably hear from the majority of folks, but at the same time, you're more than welcome to come up and speak about that item right now. Fantastic. We'll wait to hear from you. Additionally, if anyone in the community would like to call in, the number is 702-589-9629. Again, this is the initial public comment period. Okay, hearing and seeing none from public comment, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Item number 1 for possible action.
I have one to read.
You're going to read them during those instead of the individual item? I think it's probably more pertinent if we wait until the item, if we can.
Well,
If not,
it's regarding item 2.
Yes.
It's regarding item 2, so she might as well read it now, and then I can do the staff.
fantastic. Go ahead and read them into the record, please. Thank you.
Thank you. This public comment was submitted by Welsh. My backyard borders 600 on Tono Drive where the proposed variance would occur. I don't believe the 5 criteria have been met to satisfy the approval of this application. Criteria A, there are other building options, including the one described by the city planner in her notes, page 2, for building on the southwest side. The existing house sits approximately 18 feet from the interior side, southwest property line, where a 5-foot setback would be permitted. While it may not be the preferred layout and cost for the applicant, it would be possible to expand the house without encroaching into the required setback. Other options may be as easy as building out the back, but I don't think that preference should be grounds for granting a permanent 5-foot variance. As long as there are other options, I don't believe this criteria is met. Criteria B. There are no other properties in Del Prado enjoying a property right similar to what is being requested. 1137 Alma Way, 8 feet setback, backs onto River Mountain Way and the desert. 91 Wyoming has a 9-foot variance. The setting of the properties involved is different. The abutting Paloma Street property is set at a lower elevation. A 9-foot setback, almost twice the distance, has a visual impact that is significantly different than a 5-foot setback. This is not similar to Antono Street. 9 feet is closer to the next category, 10 feet and over, than it is to 5 feet. I don't think 91 Wyoming is comparable precedent. Per attachment 4, variance history, there are 5 R1-7 properties with approved rear variance setbacks less than 10 feet. None of these properties or any other properties on the list set a precedent for a 5-foot rear setback bordering on a neighbor's backyard. Criteria C. The assertion and assumption that the proposed building does not affect my sightline or impact any neighboring property in any way is incorrect. Mr. Foss has never spoken to me or any other neighbor about this, nor has he ever been on my property. A building situated 5 feet away and right in the middle of my rear property line is most certainly in my sight line. If approved, this situation will make my property unique in Del Prado. A neighbor can build up to 5 feet from the rear property line and will adversely affect my property value. Any approved variance is for the lifetime of the property. Whether by the owner or the next, there is potential for building all the way across the back property line, subsequently affecting my property. Criteria E. I don't believe this is precedent for approving the application. By approving this application, we will set a precedent that has not been set in the last 43 years. It will create a property right that others will want to enjoy, any R1-7 homeowners who need to accommodate a larger family, not an uncommon circumstance. Or for other reasons, we have a precedent to abstain a variance that allows for the building of permanent structures up to 5 feet from an adjoining neighbor rear property line. Situations change, property owners change. What does not change is the lifespan of a variance. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 1 for possible action, approval of the minutes of the May 17th, 2023 regular meeting. Got a motion?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 2 for possible action, V-23-666, Frank Foss, 600 Otono Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing a bedroom and bath addition onto the rear of this home. The proposed addition is approximately 16 feet deep, resulting in a proposed setback of 5 foot 3 inches at the closest point. I would just note that the code does allow unenclosed structures, such as attached patio covers, to go closer to the property line, but for enclosed additions in this age neighborhood, the required rear setback is normally 15 feet. The applicant has provided his reasons for the request, and I'm sure he'll address that when he speaks. The staff report goes over the 5 criteria that the Planning Commission must find in favor of in order to approve a request. The report concludes with alternate conditions to either approve or deny the request, and if the commission votes to approve, there is one recommended condition, being the standard condition that the variance approval would be based on the plans and information submitted and discussed as part of the request, and that the variance would not apply to deviations to the plans if the scope of the variance is expanded beyond the information presented to you. And there is also a zoning history of other similar variances in the report, along with some photographs. It appears that the applicant has also submitted a slightly revised version of his letter that's in the packet, but with some additional photographs attached to it. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I want to make sure that the panel appears had enough time to look through the new pictures, the new letter, everything like that. Fantastic. Anyone got any questions for staff at this time? Fantastic. We'll go ahead and bring the applicant up, please, if you wouldn't mind. Tell us a little bit about the project, what we're looking to accomplish, and then I'm sure we've got plenty of questions for you up here.
And I'm here, he is,
Please state your name for the record.
he's partially, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Frank Foss and Leslie Foss.
Fantastic.
And he is partially deaf. He got new hearing aids today, but they're not quite working like we thought they would work by
Okay.
tonight. So he probably missed the majority of what was read. I mean, I was listening, but we didn't realize there was anybody that was going to be in opposition, so we're not really prepared to speak to those concerns. But in the letter that we gave you guys, I mean, I think we covered everything. Could you hear?
No, what you said.
Okay, well, it was long. Could we maybe have a few minutes and then, so I can explain to him what was said, or how does this work?
Well, and I'm sure because there were some other submissions by some neighbors, so I'm sure that it's going to develop into a lot of conversation, some questioning on that behalf. So I'm sure we will absolutely address any of those concerns that were submitted. That was just entering those comments into the public record, just as though if they were here making those public comments. So, if you've got any sort of presentation or anything outside of this,
Well, we
we'll hear
do.
that now. Otherwise, I'm sure we've got questions.
Do you want to,
Okay, the reason we give you guys that packet and stuff, to show you with the pictures, to show you the walls and the variances, that addition that we want to add on will not be seen by anybody. You can't see it from the street, you can't see it from the back wall, you can't see it from the side wall, and you can't see it from the front. The reason the one person asked me, how come the house was put back so far, is because of the slope of the house. The house sits on a
and you can
slope.
see on the pictures.
And in the picture where you see the girl standing next to the wall, if you look close, you can see that height is almost her height is how much higher the house is. And that's what created the slope, and that's why I had to put it back where they put it back that at the place when they built it.
And there isn't room on the side where somebody had recommended that it be placed on the side. There's not enough room on that side, and that's the only entry point to get into the backyard. There's a big gate. It's
Is it?
like a 10-foot gate.
10-foot, yeah.
That's the only entry point to get into the backyard,
Backyard.
if, say, the fire
If you build
department
your-
or,
Addition there, you won't be able to get into the backyard, and if there was an emergency, nobody could get back there.
and that's why we chose the back.
And when we did this, I hired a
The architect. The architect.
huh?
The architect.
An architect, yeah, I hired an architect to come down there and look at it and show me, because supposedly he knew everything that was going on with Boulder City. So that's why I hired him. He goes back there and he measures it and he says, oh, there's a 3 to 5 foot variance, you're gonna have over 6 foot, so you'll be okay. So I went ahead and paid him the $2,500 that he charged me to set this stuff up, and we didn't know about the
Boulder City had the other
Boulder City,
rule.
the 15-foot variance. And so so I already invested into that. And then I went to the city and I thought I was getting a permit, but actually I was paying for something else. And I thought it was a permit, so I hired a contractor. And now everything's up in the air, and I already paid the contractor a third of his money. And I'm sitting there holding the bag, and these kids need a place to live.
Yeah, and I don't know whether,
I don't know whether you saw the other pictures, but the 3 kids that they adopted, they have 2 of their own. And they only have 3 bedrooms.
Yeah.
The girls are in, 3 girls are in one room, 2 boys, one, and the parents. That's why we need this addition on there to give them a little bit more breathing room.
yeah, in the event that you guys didn't get a chance to read that letter, that's kind of what we explained. They didn't have any plans of having more kids. They had 2 girls of their own, and then they have 3 nieces and nephews, and 2 nephews and a niece that basically were abandoned, and so they took them into their home, and now it's been, it's
They've had
been
a
quite a while.
little over a year.
Yeah, longer than that, I
And-
think.
They get no support from the state. They're doing this on their own.
Right, they're not getting paid.
They're trying to adopt the 3 kids right now, and this has been going on for over a year. And hopefully before December, they'll have a judgment and they'll get the kids. So
So
they've
they-
got a family of 5 kids, 2 adults, and they need a place to live. We can't afford to buy another house. They can't afford it. It's just too much money. The only option we had was the addition. And the reason the addition went where it was at, because the way the house is built inside, there was a closet and a pantry. You take the closet and pantry out, it's a straight shot down the hall to the new addition. And everything fit in place to do that. And when the architect brought it up, that's what we thought we were doing. And so here we are today. trying to get a variance. It's not for us, it's for this, to help people out.
Right.
It's to help these kids out. And this variance is not gonna hurt anybody. It's not gonna impact anything in the development or anything. And you'll probably never get another reason to have somebody
someone
wanting to
else.
build change the variance. This is probably a one-time deal because I'm not sure everybody at the development's gonna adopt 3 more kids and ask for a variance to get the distance.
And I don't think you heard, I'm saying this, I don't believe he was able to hear what was being read, and the house behind apparently are the people that submitted that, and what they're saying is that they think they will be able to see, but the
Well-
wall is 10 feet high.
But
So, I mean, I don't know for sure.
I don't think they can. The people behind that's telling you that has 3 sheds against that wall sticking up. So they're gonna have to look over them sheds to even see the roof of that new addition. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense why they would be complaining, because they're basically won't see it because of their buildings. So, I should have took a picture of that, I should have, I don't know. But, that's where we're at.
Thank you guys very much. I know we're going to have some questions around the dais here. Would anybody like to start to kick us off? First,
Excuse me, and if you notice the big trees and stuff in that one picture, that's in that backyard. The trees are blocking it. If you look at the picture, that'll
Well,
tell
that's,
you.
that one's
Tell
the
you
side.
where the backyard is at and what's in. Oh, you see these huge trees, well, the trees are gonna block that also.
so I know we're going to have a handful of questions, and I want to thank you guys here this evening. And it also sounds like
Okay.
you guys are taking on an additional burden there. I applaud you guys, and I don't envy the situation that they find themselves in. So let me ask you kind of right up front, because we know that you've explained that you've now come to become privy of our actual setbacks, and unfortunately, the architect and, another kind of ding in this process. What are the plans if ultimately we put the cart before the horse and it doesn't get approved? Have we thought that through? Is there something else with the building that can be added on in a different way? Has an
No.
architect looked at it while being in the knowledge of our actual setbacks? A new architect looked at it.
Well, it's the same architect, but
It's
we,
the same
and he
architect.
has,
He
he's
has
aware
looked
of
at
the
it,
situation.
and
The builder's been out
if
there
you look at the
too.
plans, there's no entry that you could make to put there on the side. If you, like I said, if you put the house at the addition on the one side, it's gonna block the entry from the backyard, and there won't be no
Into the
entry.
backyard, yeah.
On the other side, of the house, the
It's
way
even
it's set
more
up,
narrow.
there's 2 bedrooms there, and there's no hallway, there's no way to get to
So,
it.
but the architect did look at it, now being realized that originally he drew this
Yeah.
up with wrong knowledge. Now with the accurate knowledge, he or she went back to the drawing board and said, there's absolutely no other way, no other place, no other way to skin this cat.
He basically told me that
Yeah.
the best place to put it is where we got it right now, and he says, there's no other, he says, I don't know how you'd put the other thing on there. He says it'd be very difficult. You'd have to go in and take part of the 2 bedrooms out to make a hallway. And that's defeating the purpose.
And he also said, or if we made it longer,
He said if
then-
you try to
then
make
your-
it
then the
longer,
addition's just gonna be real, I think, I wanna say he said 11 feet
you only have 7
wide,
feet. You can't have 7 feet
Or
to
what, yeah. it was-
walk down the 7-foot room.
So
that
it
was
would be.
that's a
that was
mansion
the
from when I was in
term.
If you made a
Afghanistan.
long ways,
Understood. I just wanted to make sure that the architect went back and had another look
Yes,
at it.
and the builder has too. I mean,
Okay.
the construction guy.
yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Rudd, I know you had some.
There's no height restrictions in that neighborhood, is there?
Height for all the residential zones is limited to 2 stories and 25 feet.
To 2 stories?
You said something about an outside entry from the front of the house, is that correct?
We're talking about the 10-foot, there's a gate, to get to the backyard,
Uh-huh.
the only, other than a small gate on the one side, the other side is, it's got a 10-foot gate that, you know, is used, I mean, like say if you needed the fire department or something, or just to access the backyard.
So my question, I would try to understand, is there's no entry into that room from the outside that is intended to be almost like a separate residence?
No, it's gonna be connected.
It's gonna be
Because the
connected.
hallway, this is why the architect said that the perfect place to put it, where he drew it, was because if you go down the center of their hallway, and they've got 2 bedrooms on this side and 1 on that side, and then they've got a bathroom, he said, you take and you extend that hallway. At the end of the hallway was like where you put towels or whatever that you want to. And right on the inside of the master bedroom, there was a second closet. So what he did was he said to go down that way and use that existing entrance to get into the new addition. He would just go right there as opposed to going a different way. I'm not sure if we're,
And so remind me if it was already stated, is the addition just bedrooms?
it's a bedroom or 2 bedrooms and a bathroom or a bedroom. How-
It's a bedroom and a bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay, so nothing else? There's no
It's
kitchen,
small.
for example,
Oh,
or
no, no,
anything?
no, no.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Got a couple last minute questions. I know Commissioner Rudd had mentioned second stories being allowed out there, and noticed that this is a single story home to confirm. Have we looked at building up versus building out?
Building up would cost us a fortune. We couldn't afford
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
I'll be truthful
Your
with you.
current garage, are you guys using it for cars, or has it already converted?
Yeah, because the garage is just,
It's like their laundry room, and they use it for storing, like all the, like the excess stuff
and
that belongs to the kids.
they can't really drive a car in there
Yeah,
because
they-
of the way the slope of the house is.
Of the driveway is.
The
I mean,
driveway. It's really steep.
Yeah, so they use it primarily for storage and the laundry room.
Understood.
Because somebody asked us, said, well, what if you took the garage out and built a room there? Well, you could do that, but it's not feasible. They wouldn't have they wouldn't have a laundry room.
Or a place to
Their-
store their extra
Their
stuff.
laundry room is in the garage.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions for the applicants? No, thank you guys very much.
All right.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to be heard on this matter, please be acknowledged. Come forward. Yes, ma'am. State your name for the record.
Leslie Welsh. And I live at 601 Del Prado, which is I'm sorry. Leslie Welsh. And I'm really sorry that you folks. have never-
Ma'am, we're going to
I can't
address all
talk now?
comments
Okay.
to the.
I was
yes,
going to
thank
say, I'm sorry that they have never talked to me, because I could have showed them from my backyard.
And we do apologize for that.
you.
Yeah.
This is the last time I'm going to say no back and forth
Okay.
to us. Thank you, ma'am.
Because they don't, there will be site, right? So they're proposing a 12-foot building, 12 foot at the peak. There's a 6-foot wall, so I won't see the bottom 6 feet of the building, but I will see the top 6 feet of a building. That's 5 feet. We'll look at what 5 feet is. This is 5 feet. So if this is my back wall, this will be the face of the building. I will see it, and I think that anything that's that close to my property affects the whole quality of the backside of my property, which also affects my property value. So I didn't want to take a lot of time because you did all receive my email? Okay. So I think that you take this stuff as seriously as I am, and I say that because in 43 years, there have been 10 rear less than 10 feet variances approved. Out of those 10, 5 are R17s, 2 are in Del Prado. In Del Prado, one of those properties is across the street from us. It borders onto the road and the desert. There is no rear neighbor. So the only, the property that's being used as a precedent is 91 Wyoming. And I know the people that live at 91 Wyoming, and I went and looked at that property. They have a 9-foot variance. That's twice this, almost twice this, right? And the setting is very different. So Wyoming Street is here. Can you hear me? The backyard property of that is on Paloma, which is around and down. And it's on a grade. It's not a real steep grade, but it's a grade. So this property is feet, 3 feet, 4 feet lower. So from the Paloma Street property, looking at the building that got built, they're looking up over a tall wall, and they see a rooftop that is 9 feet on the other side of their neighbor's property. That is not what this is going to look like. We are on pretty equal ground, and it's, we're looking at 5 feet back. And it's not over on that side of the property, it's not on that side of the property, it's right in the middle of my back patio. So the idea that there's nothing on that side, I have 2 little fruit trees, I have roses, I have a nice patio. It's an outdoor living space that is now going to have, when I come out on that patio, there's going to be a rooftop, 6 feet of it, right in the middle. I say that that is in my line of sight. I say that that affects the quality of my back lot, which in turn affects my property value. The other thing that I think would affect my property value is the fact that now I become the only property in all of Del Prado that has a neighbor that can build up to 5 feet onto my backyard. I don't think there's any precedent for that here on the variance list. I've looked at all these properties. I don't know. I feel like there needs to be more scrutiny on where things can be built. The back of this property is, it's a big dirt property. There's nothing there. I don't know why they can't build towards the road. There is a gate. I think there are other building options. I don't think there's precedent for this, for a 5-foot variance backing up on a backyard, not a garage, not a driveway, not the road, not the desert. That's different, right? It does affect my property value, and I think if you do approve this, this sets a precedent. This sets a precedent for anybody who wants to build an addition up to 5 feet to your neighbor's
30-second
backyard.
warning.
I'm good. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to be heard during this public hearing? And those joining us out in Boulder City wishing to call in, the number is 702-589-9629. It's about a minute, that's good. Fantastic. Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and close this public hearing. We'll bring it back around to the dais. Discussion, entertain a motion. What do we got?
I'd like to say that both the applicant and Leslie Welch, I think I have your name right. No, that, you know, their pictures, diagrams, I think both sides have made it very easy to understand. And although I sympathize with the applicant, the issue of precedent disturbs me and is going to cause me to deny this. But thank you.
I agree with Matt that my biggest concern is about setting the precedent and how close to that back wall this would be. And I do believe there's alternatives here. They may not be the best solution, but I think they have other choices that they could do so we don't have to set some type of precedent. Thank you.
We'll echo those sentiments. And I just want to take just 1 second and hopefully reach out to the applicants and say, the concern of setting a precedent, we've already heard it just twice already. I want you to understand that I don't speak for everyone, but I think they might be able to resonate that we do get asked out and about in the public quite often about a situation just like this. So although only a handful may have come before our committee before that we have voted on, I can tell you I get asked weekly, monthly of how hard would it be to get a 3-foot setback off of this or a 5-foot setback. And I tell people on a weekly and monthly basis, it's impossible because you don't have an extenuating circumstance. The reality that we need a larger house is not enough for us to grant that across the board.
Ask you something?
Not at this time, sir. And so, I'm inclined as well, but, there are other building options. But I just really want to implore that even though we've only got 10 that are in this packet that have come before this panel, I field these types of verbal requests on a weekly basis. And so, just because they don't end up here doesn't mean that there's a demand or a desire from the public to add on to their house, because many people, especially just now, are in the exact same financial strains that you are, where adding on to their house is going to be way more efficient than trying to buy and sell in today's market. With that, I'll entertain a motion. Or if you've got further on conversation, please.
And it's,
Could I ask
and
a
it's not, I'm sorry, the public
No, not at this time, sir.
loud, I'm sorry. Sorry, that was for you to say. I just want to say to you that it's not for a lack of compassion about the situation. I speaking for myself, but I think I know these folks well enough to know that we considered this probably more so, or I know I did, put a lot of thought into the situation, but our responsibility is to uphold the ordinances unless there's extenuating circumstances. And I just wanted to tell you that it's well thought out, the decision, and it does not lack the compassion. Thank you.
Comment?
Please.
There's also the aspect of it's not only the applicant, but it's also the other property owners, and that's where the code comes in. The code is designed to make it fair for everybody. And so that's why the criterion here is very specific and as to what an applicant has to meet. And it is set up very strenuously to ensure that also other property owner rights are considered. So The whole issue of extenuating circumstances, precedent are very real and are part of the criteria.
Thank you. Entertain a motion?
I move to deny V-23-666 based on the findings contained on page 3 of the staff report.
Got a motion?
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion to deny carries. Moving on to item number 3 for possible action, City of Boulder City for Frank and Florence Jameson Family Trust, 115 Casamanta Court.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Listen to me 1 minute, please. I want to ask you,
Sir, this
if
is
we
wildly
drop that
inappropriate.
roof down, can we build that?
This is not the appropriate time. I know that we can circle back around. There's an appeal process to this exact finding that you can take to the city council.
I know that.
And there's an amendment that we can make and do a simple request and come back through here the exact same way. But now's not the appropriate time.
Because if they're worried about the roof,
Sir, we know that now's not the appropriate
I
time.
have a design that will change that.
We look forward to seeing you again. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, the children love you.
Apologize for that. Where were we, Susan?
I will do a summary of the staff report for this request, which is for a master plan and zoning map amendment for a very small piece of property that has been added previously to 115 Casamantana Court. For all practical purposes, staff considers this a routine cleanup matter for the maps. As the report notes, the applicant bought an additional piece of property from the city. It's been since combined with his property, and the master plan and zoning maps need to be amended to incorporate the same master plan and zoning category for that added land. So the staff report gives you all the pertinent information. What I will summarize for purposes of the agenda is that my description of the request satisfies the state law requirement for a neighborhood meeting. In this case, the city is acting as the applicant on behalf of the property owners relative to the previous land sale agreement. So we've always, in such cases when the city is the applicant, we hold the neighborhood meeting here at City Hall, and it does exactly that, just explains the request, and I'm happy to provide any further information if the commission has any questions. You'll note that per the information on the last page of the staff report, you're being requested to make 2 motions, one regarding the master plan and one regarding the rezoning. For the master plan, because state law has extra specific requirements with regard to master plans, you actually have 3 alternate resolutions in your packet depending on how many people vote for the approval or denial of the request. You don't need to worry about that. You just need to make whatever recommendation that you choose, and we will make sure that the chairman signs the appropriate resolution, and then this would get forwarded to the city council.
And just one point of clarification, Susan, if I may, the neighborhood meeting and the public hearing are going to coincide together, and we're going to administratively.
Technically, I've just conducted the neighborhood meeting by explaining the request, because per NRS, that's the only, that's what a neighborhood meeting is for.
Fantastic.
If a private applicant were applying for a master plan amendment, they would have to hold a neighborhood meeting, notify property owners within 700 feet, and at that meeting, explain the request. That's all it's for.
Fantastic. I feel well educated. Thank you, Susan. Do we want to bring the applicant forward? Is there anything, this seems purely administrative in nature, if the applicant has anything to add, if he or she is here? If not, then we're good to go. Fantastic. Thank you, sir. I'm going to go ahead and open it up on the dais here for any questions of staff. Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and move on to the public hearing portion of this agenda item. Is anyone wishing to be heard on this item? Please come forward. Those that are out there can call into 702-589-9629, wishing to be heard on this item. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing portion. Bring it around to the dais for any conversation, or we'll entertain a motion. Do these need to be taken separate, or can we adopt as both?
In this case, I would recommend doing them separately.
Perfect. The boss has spoken.
Unless there is a comment, I would recommend approval. I would move to approve resolution number 1232, which includes findings for a recommendation in favor of MPA 23-047.
Got a motion?
I'll second that.
And a second. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? First motion carries. Entertain a second motion for the rezoning.
Similarly, move to approve resolution 1233, which includes findings for recommendation in favor of AM 23-364.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 4 for possible action, City of Boulder City, additional energy resource zone area, El Dorado Valley transfer area.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For this request, the proposal is to change the master plan and zoning designations for approximately 783.3 acres in the El Dorado Valley transfer area for additional solar development and related utility facilities. Relative to prior or pending lease actions in the El Dorado Valley, it's necessary to update the master plan and zoning maps to reflect certain energy uses that were previously entered into the land management process list for that purpose. And again, as noted before, this explanation constitutes the neighborhood meeting required by state law. The staff report goes into a bit more detail about, the property itself and the characteristics of it. And if you have desperate questions about utility matters, we do have Brock Armentrout from our real estate division available in case you have any particular questions about that. But as the staff report notes, all of these properties previously were before the Planning Commission as part of the land management process, and that is specifically to get an initial viewing of these proposals. And then once the council enters, those properties on the land management process list for that purpose, it basically they then have the go-ahead per our code to proceed with lease negotiations and other actions regarding that. And that's what's in process. So at this point, we are now just cleaning up the master plan and zoning maps to follow through with those actions.
So all actions have already taken place, lease agreements have already been negotiated, everything's been done, and this is merely just kind of cleaning up the map, and it's gone through the land use process?
Almost. For two of the area, and that 784 acres will be used for a few different purposes. And for two of them, I believe, the Silver Peak Solar and Transwest Express, I believe the lease areas are either already approved or in process, and one of them mentions that it's been under option for a number of years. And then another very small area, which was just entered into the land management process list last year, I think it was less than 25 acres. That one, there is no lease for that. As the staff report notes, the plans are to advertise that site for leasing opportunities later this year. But the bulk of the acreage would be for projects that are already in motion.
Fantastic, thank you. Bring it around to the dais. Any questions for staff?
I had a comment or question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So this property has already been set aside, just for the record, so that folks understand, because I'll get asked this later. We aren't adding any more property to be leased. That had already been done and approved. We're updating the zoning and the map.
That's my understanding, and if that's misstated, I'll let Brock correct it.
Welcome back, Brock.
I wish I'd said I'd missed these week or monthly meetings, but I don't. For the record, I'm Brock Armentrout. I'm the contracts real estate manager for the city of Boulder City. She's correct. Of the 3 of these sites, 2 we have under lease or option to lease. That would be the Silver Peak Solar Phase 1. They'll be starting construction here in the next month or so. Transwest Express is a DC to AC terminal site for a direct current to alternating current substation. If you read the Las Vegas Sun this morning, you would have seen an article about this project just getting started with power being brought in from Wyoming down to this location. The 3rd site was added to the LMP this last January. It's the remaining area outside the BLM transmission corridors before we can advertise it for lease for energy use, such as battery storage or another substation. It actually has to have the master plan updated before I can acquire an appraisal for the site. So the polygon is as large as it is, so we can encompass them all. Most of that area is encumbered by transmission lines, can't be built on anyways. So we're just trying to make one large contiguous zone.
Questions, comments, concerns? No? Before we do the public hearing? No? Fantastic. Neighborhood meeting complete. We're now going to move on to the public hearing portion of this agenda item. We'll open this up. Anyone wishing to be heard during this portion? Once again, the phone line to call in, wishing to be heard, is 702-589-9629. Go ahead and close this portion of the public hearing. Looks like you got off easy, Brock. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll bring it back around to the dais. We do have 2 different resolutions that we can entertain motions on or entertain discussion. Nope, hearing and seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion then, unless you've got something to comment. Nope, fantastic. I move to approve resolution number 1234, which includes findings and recommendations in favor of MPA-23-048.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? First motion carries. We'll continue on, and a recommendation for approval. Move to approve resolution number 1235, which includes findings for a recommendation in favor of AM-23-366.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5. For possible action, AM 23365, resolution number 1236, City of Boulder City.
What you have before you is a proposed zoning code amendment to address tiny homes. And a training session was provided to the Planning Commission last September on this topic. And at that meeting, the commission recommended that of the options that NRS requires cities to consider, the commission recommended that the zoning code be amended to allow tiny homes in our mobile home zones. State law for cities of Boulder City size, we are not required to do all three measures that was in state law. Only one, and one of them was to accommodate them in a zone. And again, the commission recommended our mobile home zones. As the report notes, we've got two mobile home zones, one where all the lots are rented, and it's a single property, and the other is for mobile home subdivisions, where everybody owns their lot as well as their home. And the proposed text amendment basically just inserts tiny homes as an additional permitted use by right in both of those zones. They would still have to be on the same parcel size as a standard mobile home. So there are no different standards for tiny homes within the zone. So the zoning code in each zone states that the minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet. That's because staff discovered a couple of decades ago that under state law, we're not allowed to have separate lot size standards for rental parks versus owned parks. However, all of Boulder City's mobile home parks are predated that requirement, and some of them are very old, especially our rental mobile home parks were built several decades ago. So in that case, they were built under old codes, and those existing lot sizes are actually much smaller, sometimes 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 square feet. But most of the mobile home subdivisions where people own their own lots, the lots are 6,000 square feet in size. So that just means that even though the code states that they're allowed in each zone, in reality, if somebody were to rent a lot in a mobile home park zone, it would be on a smaller site, thus making it somewhat more affordable. With that, the minutes are included from the Planning Commission's previous discussion. The staff report analyzes, the pertinent aspects of the code, and staff would be happy to answer any of your questions regarding this.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Ernie?
Yeah, I do. I want to make sure I understand your comment about what are considered lots that have already been out there of a smaller size. My impression is that those just are basically grandfathered in to allow for the tiny home, even though it's a much smaller area. But we're not saying that the current requirement, I think it's 6,000 square feet for a mobile home pad area, would be allowed to go smaller just for tiny homes.
What you're stating is correct. Nothing in the code is going to change. The existing sites in rental mobile home parks that might only be 3,000 square feet, mobile homes sit on them now. So if somebody wishes to remove a mobile home and put a tiny home in its place, the code would allow for that. But the code is not changing any of the minimum lot sizes, because per state law, we're not allowed to have a different standard. In other words, if we were to have any new mobile home parks or subdivisions created, they would all have to meet the 6,000.
Well, thank you for confirming. I just want to make sure. There is one other question that I'm a little, it's probably not a big deal, but I'm almost wondering why we have to differentiate tiny home. I mean, the reality is the definition on mobile home and a tiny home dwelling are essentially the same, other than this particular unit size can be 400 feet. So the distinction of why we have to modify the code to really say tiny home, when in reality it's a mobile home.
It was required by the state, and I think it's.
Is
their
that really the
approach
whole,
for
it is,
tackling
because they
homelessness.
differentiate
Oh,
it?
100%, yeah. It was a
Okay,
big
then-
movement and a push for tackling homelessness or affordable housing, and from the state level, and it's many states are adopting this, and I didn't mean to steal any thunder, but they are requiring every jurisdiction to adopt it. And so some jurisdictions I know are creating zones and creating parks full of tiny homes and trying to attract that, and others are trying to really just do the necessary to accommodate for them if they make their way here.
So I have a question for
Yes,
staff.
please.
Will these be exempt from mobile home regulations and laws? Like a regular general contractor is not allowed to work on a mobile home. Are these going to be exempt because they're classified as a tiny home?
Correct. Mobile homes are regulated by the state differently than permanent structures. And so this would have to follow all the building code requirements of any typical size home. And so contractors that work on regular homes could build the tiny homes.
Thank you.
I wanted to circle back. I know we've got the minutes here, and member Lassoff, DeTeresi here, had brought up, eventually we've got to put language in our code to be compliant, but ultimately putting it out to the public. Has that still been cultivated? Is that still on the plans? I know we're not voting on it this evening. There's nothing to that, but I also don't want this to get lost just in the minutes in our packet.
In terms of discussion regarding other
Doing some
alternatives?
type of, ballot question to see what the public might want, some type of more elaborate zone specifically for them. I don't know if I'm in favor of going to the public for every single opinion, but in the minutes there, it sounded like there was a fruitful conversation and enough members had raised interest in doing that. I just want to make sure that that's not lost.
Absolutely. I mean, something we can reevaluate. This, bottom line, gets us in compliance with state law, which has to be done by January 1. And certainly, the Planning Commission and/or the City Council can initiate exploration of additional text amendments and/or creation of a new zoning district to accommodate tiny homes. And we'd be happy to work with you on that.
Now, is that something that we want to push out to the public or seek feedback from the council? And maybe seek their guidance on developing more? Because I know that this simple text gets us compliant with the state. We're good there. But if we want to develop out and actually bring tiny homes here, we got to be a little more proactive than just a couple of text amendments. And I don't know if that's interest from the public or the council or anybody else.
From what I remember, the discussion with myself and Nate Lassoff, yeah, this brings us into compliance because of our small population. But we were discussing whether or not the people of Boulder City have an appetite for an area of town designated for tiny homes. And I believe even the old airport area was mentioned. So I think that's where we stand now.
Absolutely. I just want to, press that it sounds like there's a product that we need to see if there's an appetite. And I think we probably start with maybe seeking guidance from the council, if that's appropriate, for us to maybe hold then some type of workshops or any open meetings here at our level. But if it's not something that the council wants us to work, then so be it. But if that's appropriate, we can ask the council if they want us to continue cultivating tiny homes. But here tonight, we're going to deal with just the text amendment. So minus any other comments, questions, concerns, I will entertain a motion. Oh my, thank you. Yes, please, we are holding the...
I wasn't even here for this, but...
I'm going to open up the official public hearing. Anyone wishing to be heard, please come
I'll
forward
be
and state your
very
name.
short.
State
I'm
your
Pat
name.
Murphy, and I'm a great fan of tiny homes, but I'm wanted to make sure that you had considered the possibility of unintended consequences. Does this open the possibility that rental parks will favor tiny homes, boot out low-income seniors, and charge more for tiny homes? Just, I mean, I have no idea. You guys have probably already considered that, but just in case.
Ma'am, can you state your name one more time?
Oh, Pat Murphy. Thank you. Easy to spell.
Thank you, thank you. And those are the types of conversations that I want to make sure that we allow our community to have. So anyone else wishing to be heard on this agenda item? Okay, we're going to open up the phone lines, 702-589-9629. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that portion of the public hearing. Bring it around to the dais for any further conversations, questions, or I'll entertain a motion.
Relative to the discussion we had on the, whether something should go to council relative to this item, could we just maybe consider adding a comment to the, let's say, the motion where we approve that also just says we would offer up for consideration that the council consider putting it forward to the, or give consideration for bringing it more to the citizens to just get the idea of whether there should be a zoning district
So
specific.
I think we'll leave it off this motion, but if we can make sure that somehow, some way, it'll either get on their agenda
That's
item.
basically
but yeah,
all. I didn't know if you
absolutely.
need to do it in the motion or if it just.
No, I think we
Mr.
can make it-
Chairman,
yeah.
the minutes will be included
Okay.
with the council's consideration of the proposed text amendment, so they'll see all of the comments. Yeah.
Entertain a motion. Then I will recommend a vote. There you go, Ernie. Please do.
Sure. I'll move approval resolution number 1236, which includes findings for recommendation in favor of AM 23-365.
I'll second.
I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? First motion carries. Nope, that was it. I just said first motion because I thought there was a whole lot more to it. Well, there's the final agenda item number 6, the monthly progress report.
No comment.
We've got our final public comment period. Anyone wishing to be heard during the final public comment period? Hearing and seeing none, we'll open up the phone lines. Wishing to call in 702-589-9629. Not hearing anything, we'll go ahead and close the final public comment period. Meeting adjourned.